Right, Shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to you brothers out there that's listening and learning and supporting the ministry, and to the sisters as well. And I just want to respond to this video that Alex Jones made called BBC Says Romans and Brits Were Black. And I'm just gonna play a couple clips, then we're gonna get into some history and some scriptures briefly, and then you could do your own research, open up your own mind, okay?
Where in the new BBC cartoons for kids, it shows the typical British Roman family of 2,000 years ago, and they're black. And of course, archaeologists say that England was 99.9% white. The Pentagon War,
you know, which that's not actually true, okay? That's not what's recorded in history. Them archaeologists are going off, they're lying. All right, let's hear this clown and Paul Joseph Watson, man. Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai has got something for you, okay? You and Alex Jones. And let me say this, Alex, you ain't gonna escape America, man. Okay, I know you probably cut some deal with the elites or some clown somewhere, and they told you they're gonna let you know, and you're gonna get yourself and your family out before, you know, shit hits the fan, so to speak. The Lord is gonna put a spanner in your works, and you're gonna be caught out there in America. That's only fitting that you receive the judgment. You receive full judgment in America. And you, Mr. Joseph Watson, man, I hope you go in a slave ship. I hope you are preserved for slavery, straight up. Anyway, let's hear this clown.
Because this has only got funnier in the 2 days since. Here's the video about the BBC and historians self-proclaimed literally trying to rewrite history to claim that Roman Britain was ethnically diverse 1,500 years ago. Here's the video. The BBC released an educational documentary about Roman Britain, depicting what they said was, quote, an exploration of life in Roman Britain shown through the eyes of a typical family. This is how they chose to depict a typical family in Roman Britain over 1,500 years ago. Yeah. Really. I tweeted about it, saying it was historically inaccurate to depict Roman Britain as ethnically diverse, making the point that this was obviously the BBC engaging in politically correct tokenism, and that this wasn't what a typical family in Roman Britain would have looked like. Oh, and the butthurt was immense. Verified libtards from every corner of Twitter exploded with rage, including...
I don't play this whole liberal conservative paradigm, okay? So I'm not even gonna get into that, but the BBC were correct on that. All right, you sir are just an asshole, okay? I'm not into your paradigm. Now I got a book here. You see if I can, the name of the book, I'm gonna put it in so you can if you want to get this book, it's a very good book, Ancient and Modern Britons. And it's by David McRitchie, okay? Alright, so if you want to go get this book, you can go get this book. There you see an image of a knight with his lady. Alright, this information is out there. Alright, you Edomites, you rewrote history, and you're the one that's caused this confusion. Alright, Britain was ethnically diverse. In fact, the original peoples in Britain were actually Israelites. You Edomites came later. Alright, but what I want to do is I want to read an excerpt from this book, Ancient and Modern Britons, from page 11 and the final paragraph. Alright, slacking, wait, not page 11, sorry, page 9. It says, the question of the origin of the white races, which has now long held the supremacy in these islands, because we can admit that at this moment in time, the so-called white man, the Edomite man, holds the supremacy on these islands. In fact, their image holds the supremacy on these islands, because you got people in Britain that look like so-called white people, but their lineage actually goes back to the original peoples that were here before them, which are really Israelites, like the Celts and Anglo-Saxons. They were Israelites. These Edomites, a lot of these people that are calling themselves Edomites, they're not really descendants of those people. They mix with them, but they're not of those people. It says the question of the origin of the white races which have now long held the supremacy in these islands scarcely enters into the present inquiry, which has to do more with their colored predecessors, because it's a historical fact that the further you go back in British history, the more the people are described as swarthy, as dark-skinned, as curly-haired. It says, but it may be as well to bear in mind that the now familiar theory of successive Aryan migrations is only a theory founded upon an unquestionable speech connection. Alright, so what Mac Ritchie was bringing out in his book on page 9 is basically showing you, in his book, he details how ancient and modern Britons, right, the ancient Britons were a people of color. The modern Britons are a people which lack color. And what the scholars don't want to deal with is what happened. Where did these so-called white people came from if the original people on the British Isles were recorded in history as a people of color? The Roman historian Tacitus recorded that the Welsh tribes he met when he came to Britain were swarthy with curly hair. The word swarthy means dark-skinned. So now you're going to say that the Roman historian Tacitus was going off? Septimius Severus, who was living in Britain, originally came from Carthage. So Britain was ethnically diverse. When you go back 2,000 years ago, you had Israelites in Britain, and you also had Edomites in Britain. And Israelites began and still are today predominantly are a people of color. So you going off. And even when you go into Rome, Rome was ethnically diverse, because you had Israelites who were living in Rome, even though you Edomites had the supremacy. And that's why one of the places where the Apostle Paul spread the gospel was to Rome, and you had a church in Rome, and that church in Rome was made up of Israelites, because Israelites were scattered throughout Europe, and the Israelites are a people of color. This is James 1:1. James, a servant of God and the Lord Yahawashi Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. So the 12 tribes were scattered abroad. Now, when you go to John 7:35, he said, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Because you had Israelites scattered throughout all of Asia Minor and all the way up through Europe. Tarshish. You had Israelites that were going into Tarshish since the days of Jonah. Why the hell do you think Jonah fled to Tarshish? You think he fled there? He fled there because he knew there were Israelites there too. That's where you get the Iberians. Because the Israelites went there. The Israelites were all up in Greece. That's where you get the Spartans. That's recorded in the Holy Scriptures in the book of Maccabees. I'm not going to get all into it now, but I'm just making the point that these guys, man, they don't want to face the truth that the Israelites are a people of color, and we have been all over this place, man. And you Edomites have lied about history, man. And now the truth's coming out. You don't like it, man. You don't like it. But so what? All right. Now this is the book of Romans 1:4. It says, 1:7. To all that be in Rome, beloved of the Most High, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from the Most High our Father and the Lord Yahawashi HaMashiach. Now those Romans were Israelites because they were called to be saints. Who were the called of the Lord? Isaiah 48:12. Hearken unto me, O Jacob, and Israel my called. I am he, I am the first, I also am the last. Because you had many of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that were from the southern kingdom, who were scattered during the Hellenistic period among the different nations that were in Europe. And you had Israelites that were in Europe even before the Hellenistic period. And they were people of color. It's a fact that the Israelites were a people of color, just as the ancient Egyptians were a people of color. All right. So I don't know what the hell you talking about. All right. So even in Rome, okay, even in Rome, even in Italy, it was ethnically diverse. Same as in Britain. This is Acts 18:2, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, and the Jews are a people of color, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy. So he was in Italy and he was a Jew with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome. So that shows you that Rome was ethnically diverse. So what the hell are you talking about? So Britain weren't ethnically, they say it was 99%. Shut up, man. You off. You lying, man. And the Lord's going to deal with you, man. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that out, and you could get this book, Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, Volume 1, and he thoroughly details in history how it's recorded that the ancient Britons were a people of color. And even he admits in the book that that would mean that some of these so-called white people you see today in Britain and elsewhere are really descended from that people of color, but look so-called white because of the mixing of the blood. That's why we tell you, you got Israelites even scattered among so-called white people, because their lineage goes back to people like this through their father's line, the dark-skinned people who held at one time the supremacy in Europe and in Britain. So with that, I'm gonna say shalom.